Alright, hey guys. So I want to talk to you guys about some force-on-4 solutions for your rifle platforms that are coming out. In particular, one of the things we're going to talk about today is the Solutions Unit 4 rifle. This is unique from other traditional style airsoft type rifles in that it fires an 8mm BB with both solid projectile and as well they have a paint round as well for it. So it's actually got some marking rounds for it as well. Also, this particular receiver is actually manufactured by Lewis Machine & Tool. Those of you guys who are kind of around the AR platforms and stuff, you know that's a very reputable company that actually manufactures real firearms and has got a good reputation. So this thing is as solid as your real firearm can be. It is not a real firearm in the sense that the two pins that hold the upper and the lower together have been dimensionally changed slightly such that it won't mate up to a real firearm receiver. Therefore, they can get around the need for having such a thing be serialized. So this is technically not considered a firearm. Other than that, it links up to all real steel components. You know, those of you guys who are in the airsoft community understand the term real steel. When we're talking about that, we're saying that it basically matches up with regular off-the-shelf accessories, rails, stocks, things like that. This particular one comes with a free-floated UTG full-length rail, as well as the standard, collapsible stock on this as well. The KWA would be kind of the next grade down. This one fires a 6mm BB. There are some paint type rounds for them, but they're still not yet perfected. So basically I would consider these to be solid projectiles only. This particular rifle is the LM4, LM4D specifically, but this fires a gas blowback system. The magazines are charged and hold the BBs the same as the Unit Solutions. We'll get into the magazines in a minute. This one over here is the WeTech rifle, the WeTech open bolt. Again, just like the KWA, 6mm BBs, the air system is actually stored in the magazine itself. And this one, all three of these actually made up to real steel components as well. So whether it be stocks, sights, anything like that, they're all equally compatible. Some of the differences are going to be with the magazines themselves. Now, this particular magazine by Unit Solutions, the Unit 4 mag, is extremely robust. Like they built the hell out of this thing. This thing is solid. This is not something that I would ever worry about having to do reloads on concrete or anything like that. If this thing hits, like you're not gonna mess it up. It's solid. It's also dimensionally close enough that it will actually mate up with your pouches and things like that without any sort of differences there. It does appear to be maybe just slightly thicker, but I don't think it'll be anything that'll cause you issues as far as mating up to your gear and making sure that it all fits correctly. One of the things, the difference is in the Unit 4 rifle is that the system actually opens up and allows for what they call a T-pack to go in. Now this T-pack here is designed such that it houses the air system and the BBs internally. And basically what you do is it's a one-time use type of thing. I throw that in and you'll see the BBs actually come up to the top here. I'll take the orange tab on the bottom, I'll twist that off, and now from here I go ahead and just put this on, mate it up, and then close it, and it actually breaks the seal on the air, pushes the BBs up to the top so that this magazine is ready to go. It does have a purge valve on the back so that when you're done with the rounds in this, there will still be some air left over depending on the ambient temperature that you're firing in. And when that's all said and done, if you have to purge the air out, you'll just go ahead and hit the purge button, let that air out. We'll kind of demo these in a little bit. The KWA system is very, very similar. It's got basically a reservoir inside, and what you'll do is you'll take either propane or green gas and actually mate up the nozzle to the bottom, like so. You'll go ahead and fill this up, and the BBs are housed in there. Basically, this is a 40-round magazine, houses the air and the rounds inside. This is a true 30-round magazine, houses the BBs and air inside, so on and so forth. So the next one that we have is the WeTech rifle. This magazine also 6mm BBs. It's got a contained air system inside. Both of these have replaceable valves so that they can be replaced, but it charges up the same way. Go ahead and throw that on. You'll fill that up. BBs will go inside here, and then you're ready to go. So basically the way all these rifles work is exactly the same. The air system and the ammunition are stored in the magazines themselves. The rifles themselves have a bolt that houses a valve system that will actually chamber the BB into the chamber, and then the air will actually go ahead and throw that round out, throw the projectile out, whether it be a paint round or a solid projectile. So the real differences between these are going to come down to the strength of the rifles themselves, as well as the options that are available with respect to solid projectiles or paint cartridges, paint marking rounds. The unit Solutions, like I said, it fires an 8mm BB, so there's no way that you're going to be able to mix and match these with this. Because this is firing an 8mm BB, the barrel has been necked up, slightly as compared to these, so there's not going to be any kind of cross compatibility between the two. The strength of this, because it being a milled receiver that's actually manufactured by a good high quality AR platform manufacturer, is probably going to surpass these here. But what we have here with the KWA is that this is also a milled receiver. So this is in comparison to the old KWA. This is an old one that we have had for probably 12 years. This one, the way that it came was you had an upper and a lower that were made up your two-piece receiver, but this top upper was also made of two pieces. The original KWAs, LM4s were cast, and basically you can see where the Picatinny rail has actually broke off of this because the pins that actually held the Picatinny rail on the top of the upper were actually just, it just didn't hold up well. So in force on force, that did end up getting ripped off, but they have since fixed that with these new LM4s. This Picatinny rail is actually milled into the top here so that it can't come off, can't break off anymore. And this is also a milled upper and milled lower receiver. So it's not sure what the grade of aluminum is for this as compared to this, but I would consider these probably equally as strong as one another. This is a WeTech. This also is using a one-piece upper receiver with the Picatinny rail all milled into the top here. But this is, or excuse me, not milled, but this is all cast, is my understanding. Is that the WeTech is actually a cast platform as opposed to a milled platform. So it's not going to be quite as strong. But that being said, I've had this rifle for 6-7 years, and we've done force on force with it, and it still functions fine. I haven't had any breaks or anything like that happen. So looking at all of these, next thing we got to start looking at is we got to start looking at costs. The cost of this rifle is about $1,100. The magazines run about 90 bucks. I've got my notes here. They run about 90 bucks a piece. It will come with the rifle and one magazine. This rifle comes with the rifle and one magazine. Both of these do. This rifle runs about 450 bucks. Additional mags run about $50. The WeTech rifle runs about $340, and additional mags run about $50. Now, the reason why the cost of the mags are so important to these particular systems is because of the fact that it's the mags that are the actual heart of the system. And by that, what I mean is that unlike a real M4 type platform, if I load this rifle up and I go ahead and chamber around, we're good to go. I go ahead and I fire off a round, it fires fine. But if I eject this mag, even though there's still one in the chamber, nothing's gonna happen. And that's gonna be the same for all of these rifles. That's one of the drawbacks to using any of these type of air charge systems, is that the air system is actually in the magazine. So if in the middle of the fight that mag gets ejected, unlike a real M4, which will have still one round left in that chamber, these won't have any, so it won't even fire that one in the chamber. So it's something to kind of take into consideration there. Other than that, all three of these fire with fully reciprocating bolts, and they lock back and function as far as weapons functionality. They all function exactly the same. The difference between the Unit Solutions and the and the LM4 by KWA and the WeTech open bolt is that I haven't had this very long, so I don't have tons of rounds through it. One of the issues that you will have with the KWA and with the WeTech is that as mags start to wear, as things start to wear on the rifle, you get to that last round, instead of getting that bolt lock back at the rear, sometimes they don't function that well anymore. Sometimes it'll work really good with newer mags, but as mags get old, the spring is no longer pressing up on the little detent button to lock that bolt back to the rear. So there starts to kind of create some artificiality. We've always worked around it and treated it as an opportunity to work basically immediate action drills and clearing malfunctions and things like that. So we've just kind of treated it that way and took advantage of that. But in reality, it's just it's a design flaw or whatever that should probably be worked out. I have not fired near the rounds that I fired through this one yet, and honestly I would have to have this one for a year to be able to put the kind of ammunition through that I have and put time in through that I have in these to be able to really see whether or not this is going to perform that well. The next thing we want to look at is basically what is the longevity of the mags. Since the mags themselves are really the heart of the unit, one of the issues that you're going to have with both the KWA and with the WeTech is that these feed lips up here that actually hold your mags in. Now, all three of these have good solid full metal mags. I mean, these things weigh as much as a real AR mag that's fully loaded. So they're not by any means light. And both of them have your release valves to release any excess air that you don't need anymore if you're discharging the system. But because of these feed lips here, one issue that you do have is that sometimes when you're doing reloads and things like that, if this thing falls and it drops on this feed lip, it will actually break the feed lip off, which is kind of an inconvenience, but you can buy additional feed lips for a couple bucks. You can get them at any airsoft place and basically just have spares on hand. I think I've only had to replace the feed lips on these things maybe half a dozen times in the years that I've had these. I mean, it kind of has to fall just right in order to break the feed lip. This one here, you're probably going to have the same type of issue, but the difference is that because this T-pack and these feed lips are part of the insert that goes inside, when I'm doing a reload, which would be when the magazine is empty, even if it falls down and it breaks the T-pack, that's not that big a deal because it's disposable anyway. So I just chuck the T-pack, I put the next one in. So I don't really have issues there as far as reloads go. The only other problem that you may have is that in instances where maybe magazines came out of my kit and hit the ground or something like that. But other than that, it's not really an issue. So that being said, what we want to do is we want to start looking at going through some testing on these. We're going to look at basically how each one of these performs and in comparison to one another, and then look at what the cost per round is as far as your investment, and maybe even compare it to UTMs and things like that. So All right, guys, so one of the things we're going to look at is we're going to look at in and around vehicles. One of the things I do in my specific niche that we do is everything is in close range. So everything that we do is either fighting in and around a vehicle, fighting in and around a shoot house, in tangled environments, things like that. That's kind of our niche. So one of the things I want to look at is I want to look at if we are teaching a class in and around vehicles, are these rifles going to end up damaging a vehicle, or do we need to use a specific vehicle like this, like our fight vehicle, that I don't care if it gets destroyed? Can we use a student's rental car to be able to train or whatever? So we're going to look at that real quick. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the WE rifle. We're just going to put a round basically in the fender of each one and see basically what kind of damage is done. So as I step back, go ahead. Okay, I'll bring the camera over here. We'll look at this, but we can see that left a pretty significant dent in there. I'm going to take the KWA now. Okay, again, about the same dent. We have a ding in the middle, and then the unit solutions. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to be able to see with this is that each one of these has got a pretty significant dent in it. Next thing I want to look at is I'm going to go ahead and change out this mag and put the paint round in here. Now, it's still going to have one solid projectile in there, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of discharge that into a safe area. Get rid of that projectile. You can see that this is the solid projectile as compared to, grab an airsoft here, as compared to an airsoft. This one being airsoft, this one being the 8mm unit solutions. So we should have chambered right now one of the paint rounds. So we'll go ahead and just put it right next to it. And you can see nice good splatter paint round. I don't really notice any sort of dent or anything like that. It actually did pretty well. I'm actually surprised. So let's go ahead and do another one and just check it out. We'll do it a little bit more on a flat surface. Okay, fire the paint round here. I don't see any sort of ding or anything like that. So the paint round actually did pretty well. The solid round, solid projectile did not do very well on the vehicle, dinged up the metal. So with respect to training with any of these platforms on or near an actual vehicle that you don't want to get messed up, I would probably steer away from solid projectiles next to a vehicle. If you use the paint projectiles from the unit solutions, it seems to do pretty well. I don't notice any sort of ding or anything like that, so you should be good to go. While we're here, I'm going to go ahead and just test these on one of our helmets as well. So we'll just go ahead and start off with the WE rifle. We'll just put one right in the face. So no breakage or anything like that, no cracking, good to go. Take the KWA. Same thing, nothing here. No marks or divots or anything. We'll take the unit solutions. Remember that there is a paint round in this, so go ahead and just put it right in there. Good to go. No cracking, breaking, anything like that. Now let's swap this out real quick. And we'll put their solid projectile in there. Remember that we're going to have one paint round in there. So we'll go ahead and just put one more paint round into the face. And then a solid round. So all of these good to go with our helmets. Right across the shield, direct hits on all of them. Nothing going on here. Even if we look at the fabric, I think probably the Unit Solutions, the solid is probably going to be the hardest hitting. So whether we hit this in the metal, which it did dent it in pretty well, but no penetrations. We hit it in the fabric itself, no penetrations. The helmet is good for all of these. You can tell that there is more recoil with the Unit Solutions rifle than with either of those. Also, the air system that's in here does appear to be more efficient. I charged up both of those magazines and charged this one up, so they all should have been topped off. These are starting to run a little low on power just because of the ambient temperature being as cold as it is. This one, because it's running on CO2 as opposed to propane, seems to be holding up better. So even just using the solid projectiles on a bag, you can definitely hear the difference in strength. We throw this on a full auto. It's definitely hitting with more power, and then we have a solid lock back in the bolt. So all things being considered, the Unit Solutions rifle does appear to be a superior platform is to the airsoft. The air system seems to be more efficient. It's using the air better. The paint rounds, I think, make it ideal for in and around vehicles, as well as if you're doing maybe force on force where you want to actually mark your target. The rounds themselves do appear to hit with a greater kinetic energy than the airsoft ones. We can definitely see the dings here from the Unit Solutions as opposed to these other gas blowback systems. These are significantly less. So without knowing the FPS and without weighing the round, I can't tell you what the kinetic energy is on each one of these, but it does appear to have more force than either one of these. So even just considering that the air systems are firing the same, let's just say right around 350 feet per second, that being said, the fact that it's an 8mm BB means it's going to have more mass. That mass at the same speed means more kinetic energy when it hits. So all things being considered, I think all of these are going to be ideal for their own place. Now, kinetic energy, when we're talking about hitting in a force on force environment, so in particular the kinds of distances that we're talking about, I know at this distance here it doesn't seem like maybe it's realistic because I'm so close, but remember that the stuff that we deal with here at RBC is I'm dealing with being able to fight with these things in entangled environments, which means that I need to be able to take this rifle and put it up close, even within muzzle contact distance, putting it on another person and not ending up with a situation where they're permanently injured or something like that. I don't need a round embedding in someone's skin. That being said, both of these rifles have absolutely broke skin at contact distance. Even within, I would say within 12 inches, they will still absolutely break skin. Even at 6 feet, depending on whether or not they hit bare skin or they hit fabric, they will absolutely still, cause a good welt and stuff and possibly break skin. This one here, just looking at the kinetic energy, I'll take a round for you guys later and we'll see how it goes, but this thing's gonna kind of suck when you get hit, that's for sure. There's definitely gonna be some negative feedback when you get hit by that round. You're gonna know you got hit for sure. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna look at is we're gonna look at basically penetration issues, in particular some of the training equipment that we use. So we use a couple different things in our classes. Basically we'll use maybe a punching bag to simulate being able to throw strikes and then be able to transition to a weapon. We'll use crash pads like this, where an individual will be back in the house or whatever, and then I'm coming in, and this just kind of gives me more of a moving target to be able to shoot, such that I can basically be able to put rounds on someone who's actually moving through a house. And then we'll use force on targets, in particular our RBC. These are specifically built, we build these ourselves, and basically what we have is we have a wooden background with a flag that identifies it as a threat. When the metal gets hit, the metal will actually knock the flag down, indicating that that is no longer a threat anymore. Sometimes that'll take 1 round, sometimes it'll take 3 or 4. The idea is that I want the student to be able to keep engaging until the flag goes down. Just keeps him in the fight. Also, there'll be other targets that are set up exactly the same with no flags, so that now the student has to differentiate between threat and non-threat. So we'll start off with just the Wii rifle, just kind of put a round in each one. So if we go to the punching bag, okay, no issues there, no penetrations, no tears. And that's with a fully charged magazine. We'll go into the crash pad. Again, no penetrations, still works good. Then we'll go into the target. Okay, knocks down the flag, so that one operates good for us. So we'll set that flag back up. Then we'll go to the KWA. So the KWA rifle, go into the punching bag. Okay, no penetrations, no issues, into the crash pad. No issues, go into the target. Okay, again, no issues. So both of these rifles will function fine for what we need to do. Go to the Unit Solutions rifle. From here, we'll go into the punching bag. Okay, let's go take a look. Good here. No penetrations into the punching bag. Go into the crash pad. No penetrations. And we'll go into the force on target. Okay, and it reacts to the flag. So
okay, swap.
What would happen if my pants stuck while shooting?
alright, so
The freaking airsoft looks worse.
the KWA,
The paint one looks like it broke skin.
the paint one, and that one there. Actually didn't hit quite as hard as I thought. All of them sucked a little bit, but that KWA, I mean, it hit basically the same spot. So I think this is, you know, the blood's still kind of coming to the surface, but it didn't break skin. That paint actually did break skin, but it also hit right on the sternum on the bone. All right, guys, so now let's start taking a look at cost. Ultimately, at the end of the day, depending on whether or not this is you and a couple guys doing this in your backyard, or whether or not you're with a law enforcement agency or with military or a private contracting training firm, whatever, this is kind of going to be a determining factor. So looking at this, we have to just compare the 3 rifles that we looked at. So we looked at the Unit4, we looked at the KWA, we looked at the WeTech. The cost of the rifle itself, in all these cases, you're having to purchase their specific rifle. So it's not like a UTM or anything like that where you're buying a conversion kit to implement into your own real firearm. This is something that is a specific rifle that is built for their specific purpose. In this case, we're looking at the cost of the rifle is about $1,100 for the Unit4. The KWA is $450. The WeTech is $340. That being said, we're going to try and basically pick up the same type of equipment. What is your initial investment for all of these? So if we're looking at like purchasing, let's say 4,000 rounds, trying to purchase 2 magazines and the rifle itself, what kind of cost are we looking at? So looking at a magazine runs about $90 for the Unit4, $50 for the KWA, $50 for the WeTech. Looking at ammo, now this is where things start to get a little bit different and where the cost savings really starts to matter and stuff. So looking at the ammo, it's $180 for the ammo for the T-packs, which basically is 20 T-packs of 30 rounds each, and it comes with the air source already installed in it. So basically 600 rounds. So in order to get 4,000 rounds, or in this case 4,200 rounds, we would have to get 7 of them. So we're looking at $1,260 to get about 4,000 rounds. For the KWA, it's about $20 for 4,000 BB, so significantly less. $15 for a nozzle. Reason that I say nozzle is in order for you to use green gas, like from a regular can, it would be 15, 20 bucks a can, and there's no telling how many cans you would need for 4,000 rounds. But for 4,000 rounds, basically you'd need 2 propane canisters. I've done this before. 2 propane canisters, which they run about $5 at Walmart for propane, and you need a $15 nozzle in order to use propane as opposed to green gas. So you're looking at only about $35 investment there for both of those. So that all being said, you're looking at about a $2,450 or $2,450 investment for the Unit 4, $540 for the KWA, $440 for the WeTech. Basically, if you boil that down to what is your initial investment per round, you're looking at about 58 cents per round for the Unit 4, 14 cents per round for the KWA, 11 cents per round for the WeTech. Now, keep in mind, the longer these rifles stay in use, the longer you're able to use these things, depending on what the longevity of these rifles is, the more the savings is going to come in. Because what it means is that for the Unit 4, you're only going to be buying T-packs now. You're only going to be buying BBs, and you will have to replace nozzles after so often. You will be replacing propane and so on and so forth. So this is something that is perishable on all of these, but assuming that the rifles and the magazines themselves hold out, that will be your initial investment cost, and then basically the cost of the rifle themselves. I'm figuring on you buying 2 magazines because all these rifles come with 1 magazine with them, so you'll just have to buy 1 additional magazine. So basically what we're looking at is 58 cents a round. If I just buy initial or additional T-packs and stuff, this 58 cents per round is going to go down and stuff, just depending on how long that rifle lasts you. Now, that being said, I just want to make sure that we're understanding that we're not comparing apples to oranges here. Both of these rifles are essentially the same. These 2 rifles, in comparison to the Unit 4, they're very similar in their air system, but one thing that testing has kind of shown is that the air system for the Unit 4 is way more efficient. It's way more predictable. It seems to be performing at a higher level than either the KWA or the WeTech. So without me basically holding on to this thing and firing tens of thousands of rounds like I have through these, I can't say how long these are going to last, but assuming that these last, that this rifle lasts as long as these do, and that these magazines hold up as long as these do, this investment here at 58 cents per round is going to continue going down. The more T-packs that you buy, the more that cost per round is going to go down. Now, I do want to say this is not really the same as this, because it does have the ability for solid projectiles as well as marking cartridges. So it's kind of like in an intermediate state between these airsoft rifles and, let's say, a UTM. So if we're looking at a UTM, the UTM is basically it's going to fire marking and non-marking cartridges, but the cartridges themselves are used in your real rifle. So basically they have projectiles like paint projectiles that get fired out of basically a cased primer, and I would consider Unit 4 to be somewhere in the middle of a UTM rifle and an airsoft. It uses the same air system, so it's got some drawbacks that the airsoft does, but it seems to be firing a whole lot more reliably and have the ability to mark paint just like the UTM does. So it's somewhere in between those rifles. But when we're looking at a UTM, we're looking at an initial investment of about $500 for a bolt conversion kit for your M4. Now, this doesn't factor in the cost of the rifle itself, because at the end of the day, the UTM is made to basically supplement your existing rifle. So you're looking at an initial investment of about $500 plus $100 for 2 specific UTM mags. Then the investment of the ammo itself. Now, the ammo itself is running right around between 50 and 55 cents a round, And here's the thing that is an issue with UTM. With UTM rifles, finding the ammo seems to be the biggest issue. UTM rounds in general, whether it be pistol or rifle ammo, finding the ammunition seems to be the biggest issue. If you can find it, because the military uses it so much, law enforcement uses it so much, if you can find it, it runs about 55 cents a round, and basically you're looking at about $2,200 for 4,000 rounds. So looking at all of these, the same investment, 4,000 rounds and stuff like that, basically it's a $2,800 investment for UTM built onto your existing rifle, and basically it comes out to about 70 cents a round. So again, the more that you buy ammo for these, the cheaper these cost per round go down. This one is going to stay pretty high the whole time, and it's just because at the end of the day, your bolt and your magazines are non-perishable. Those should last you for a long time, but the ammo itself is the biggest expense with UTM, and that's going to be a perishable type item. That's going to be something that you're just going to be going through. It's a commodity you're going to be going through significantly. So 4,000 rounds, you're looking at $2,200 there. So I'm having to make certain assumptions here based on how long I anticipate this rifle lasting. Based on my experience with airsoft, it seems to be the same types of mechanisms as these, only a higher quality. I'm gonna just kind of go out on a limb here and say I think this is probably gonna last you at least as long as the airsoft rifles, and probably significantly longer. Plus, it seems to fire the ammo efficiently. It seems to fire with more kinetic energy, more like the lines of the UTM. It has the ability to mark. At the end of the day, I think the Unit 4 is probably going to be a pretty good investment for professional training crews and stuff like that, whether it be law enforcement, private, or whether it be military. This is certainly going to be something that is going to be easier for you to get a hold of. The company has been great to work with. They've been very responsive, sent the stuff out right away whenever I went ahead and contacted them about a T&E kit. And I think it's going to be something, it's certainly going to be a viable option, certainly going to be a more cost-effective option rather than UTM, not just because of the amount of money that's invested in it, but because of the availability of ammo. The other thing to take into consideration too, one drawback to the Unit 4 is that once I get this rifle, this is now becomes a second rifle to my actual rifle. So if you're in a military unit and you've got your rifle set up a certain way, it means that you're also going to have to buy a PEC box for your Unit 4 rifle. You're also going to have to buy some sort of red dot sight or EOTech or aim point or whatever you're going to put, sort of optic you're going to put on there. You're going to have to buy a second one of those to put on there. So there are some factors to be considered here between this and this, but considering all rifles, the cost of the rifle, the cost of the 2 magazines, the cost of 4,000 rounds, this is basically what it washes out to. And I mean, I'm pretty impressed with the Unit 4. It's performed very well.